it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, I was looking around my craft space and was looking at this foam here. Now this is just packaging foam that I cut up, and I use this as an extra shim if I am die cutting something that is very intricate. So I kind of cut it into rough different sizes, just kind of all smallish sizes that will fit through my die cutting machine. And when I was looking at it, I thought it would be fun to take a print off this. So I am going to use some Crown Me Simon Hurley ink. This is dye ink and this is water reactive ink. And I am just using the ink pad to put down plenty of ink onto this little piece of thin foam. Now I have used bubble wrap and things to create prints before, which is really fun. So it is kind of exciting to look around us and see what else we can use to create cool prints and get different textures. So I am going to use a piece of watercolor paper, and that is because of the technique I'm going to do later on. But I just put it straight down onto that piece of foam and then pop down a piece of scrap paper so that I can get some nice even pressure. If you wanted to, you could run a brayer over the back, but fingers work just fine. And then this is a really cool texture that comes from this. And so I did have quite a bit of fun and I kept on going. Now I'm sure that you could kind of, a little bit like gel printing, you could put down little die cuts in it first to kind of mask off some spaces. And then you could take a print on top of that. There are all sorts of opportunities that could be really fun to have a play around with here. This time I'm going to use the Prom Queen ink, and I did use a new piece of foam here. However, afterwards I just took these to the sink and run a little bit of water over them, and they were clean, and I just let them dry by themselves, and I will use these again for die cutting or for more inking techniques, so either. So I'm doing just exactly the same thing here, popping that piece of scrap paper over top so I can get a nice, good, even coverage with my hands, and then lifting it up, and again, a really cool texture. I also took a second print or a ghost print, and that was really fun as well. It came out nice, albeit a little bit lighter. And then this was just a short little break. So if you're wondering what happened to my first version that I did of this card got cut up by some cute little helping hands that I have. I am often busy crafting with a 2-year-old on my knee, but I usually edit out all of these bits and pieces. But it's pretty cute to see his little hands chopping away and having a whole lot of fun at cutting this into lots of little pieces. So I did make several prints, so it didn't bother me at all that he was having fun cutting this up. He was giggling away while he was doing it, so as long as he's happy. Now coming back to it, I have this gorgeous big flower here. This one is from Altenew Crafts. I will link everything down below in the description box. But I am going to use a stamping platform. Now this one is from Lincraft here in New Zealand. I believe they have changed the design now and they kind of use magnets instead of this hinge. But this is honestly one of the best ones. I know that they sell a couple of these on Amazon, a couple of different versions and things. But this is my favorite stamping tool by far out of all of them that I have owned. So if you do go looking for this one, then make sure you double check if it has the hinges or the magnets which close it together. The magnets one may be fine, but I just haven't had any experience with it. I really like this hinged one, and it was a pretty good price point as well. Now I have stamped this in some VersaFine Onyx black ink, a really nice dark pigment ink, black, and I am going to stamp this down. I did use the anti-static powder bag before this because I want to heat emboss this from here because we are going to be removing some of that ink as well. So to do that, I am going to add some clear embossing powder. This is the clear from Ranger in the Superfine. I always say that you should get the Superfine versus just the regular because you can do so many more techniques with the Superfine, and it gets far more intricate and detailed stamps much better than just the regular does. And in my opinion, you don't need to have both on hand. The Superfine does everything just fine. Then I'm going to take just some plain water, and I am going to, it's in a water brush, and I'm just going to paint this on just the whole entire flower. And remember that this is the Simon Hurley Crown Me dye ink, and this is water reactive. So when we add water, it is going to become activated again. So when I add water, I just want to take away some of that ink because I'm going to then add a different color ink on top. Now you could experiment with what kind of inks you want to add back on top, or even what kind of medium. I mean, perhaps you could go ahead and use different mediums than inks, just depending on what you have in your stash. But I am going to go in with some Midnight Snack. This is again the dye ink from Simon Hurley, and I am just going to use the same water brush. I'm going to pop a little bit of water out there at the front, and then I'm just going to kind of add in some shadows a little bit. I want to bring this flower to life a little bit more than just being the same color as my background. Now there are lots of other water reactive inks other than the Simon Hurley ones. The Catherine Paula ones are, the Distress Oxides or Distress Inks are all water reactive. There are lots of different brands out there that are, so it doesn't mean that you have to have these ones at all. I did invest in most of the Simon Hurley ink range, and I really do love them. I've had a whole lot of fun with them, and I really only have 3 different kinds of inks. I have the Distress Oxide inks, and I have the Simon Hurley dye inks, and then I have the VersaFine clear pigment inks. And that is all the kind of colors ranges that I have, and I do not have the whole set of any of those. And in my opinion, you don't really need the whole set either. I definitely have less than half of the Distress Oxides available because there are just so many available, and I have a really small space that I am able to craft in. So I have to choose my products wisely. Now I'm going to add some stickered adhesive onto this scrap piece of paper here. This is a really thin double-sided adhesive, and I like this when I am die cutting and I don't want to use liquid glue to glue them together. So this is a very scrap piece of paper here. It's got the torn edges, but I'm just putting the stickered adhesive down the back there where I'm going to do my die cutting. And I do like using the stickered one because it is so nice and thin. Now I have these 2 sets here. There's the Thank You set and the Thinking of You set from scrapbook.com, and I invested in these recently because I definitely had a bit of a gap in my stash for word dies. I found that I was really short of them. I had quite a few stamps, but definitely not dies. So I had a good look around and decided upon those couple of sets. It was a really nice wide range, and I like the font, I like the size of them, so that worked out well. I am just using a little pokey tool to make sure I get out all those little bits in between the letters. And then here's the beauty of the stickered adhesive. You are just able to peel the release paper off the back, and then this doesn't become permanent until you really push it together. So when you're popping it on top of your next word there, you're able to kind of move it around and adjust it a little bit until you press down really hard, and then it becomes permanent. So I'm just going to line these up one on top of the other, and that makes a really nice thick sentiment, and that way it's going to stick off because our background is quite bold that we've created. And again, that's another reason why I'm going for a nice stark white sentiment, is because we've got kind of dark colors on our background and it's quite busy. So I like the simplicity and the nice clean of the white color. Now, if you don't have the stickered adhesive, then by all means you can go ahead and try other double-sided adhesives, or even just double-sided tape, which you would need to put several rows of it behind it. Some of them die cut better than others, so you can just try out what you have at home, or just use the liquid adhesive in between the layers, and that works really well for me too. So either works just fine. Once I have my main sentiment done, I have been using these LDRS ones a whole lot. This is the encouragement stack and the sentiment stack, and I just thought I would quickly show you because I know I talk about these a lot, and I've talked about them a lot in almost every video, and I know that everybody will be well and truly overseeing them, but just quickly I wanted to show you that all you have to do is stamp them out, and then once you have stamped them, I'm going to stamp them in some VersaFine Onyx black ink today. There is the coordinating die set, which coordinates with at least 4 of their stamp sets. So this is what I like when I talk about value for money. I like that I can use this on several different stamp sets, and I don't have to buy a different die, and it cuts them all out at one time. I have a stash on the side of my desk, and that's a really good deal for me. I really like that. I'm finding I use these almost on every single card, and it's good value for money when I know I'm getting really good use out of my products. I know that they have been out of stock, and I understand that is very frustrating. Hopefully by the time this video goes up, they will be back in stock, but I will leave all the links to those things down below. And I'm just going to choose out one that will work really well for our card today because our main sentiment says thanks. And then I'm going to pick out that one in the top right hand corner that says so very much. But there are lots and lots of good options in this stamp and die set. So I do encourage you, honestly, I was just looking around and thought, how cool would that foam be printed? So I wonder if you can look around your craft space and see some of the packaging, or find if there are any kind of textures that you have around that you are able to somehow take a print off and have a play around, or if you have some of this packaging foam at home and give it a go yourself. I love that gorgeous textured background that you can create, and then there are so many options that you are able to put on top of it, and not just the kind of stamping that I have done today, but so many other good options, and it's fun to be able to use things that we have around us already. Now I'm going to pop on the sentiment here, and it has that stickered adhesive on the back, so I'm able to just pop it down. I'm actually just popping it here really lightly to make sure that I have everything lined up well, because I've popped that little sub sentiment down on a piece of foam tape, and then I'm going to make sure I line up the sentiment perfectly, and then once I have it exactly where I want it to go, then I will push it down and everything will be permanent and stuck in place. I did go in and add a gel pen just to some of the little petals of the flower. Now it is kind of hard for you guys to tell. It doesn't make too much of a difference, but it made enough of a difference for me to kind of carry on. This is just a cheap and cheerful gel pen, and I have found this one the absolute best out of all of them I have purchased, and I have gone through a whole lot of them, but anyway, this one seems to work the best at the moment. I'm also going to put some glossy accents on top of that sentiment there, and again, it's a little bit tricky for you guys to see, but it does make it nice and glossy, and it dries absolutely clear just for that extra little bit of shine down the bottom. The very last thing that I am going to do to this card is, because I had that white sentiment there, I've got that nice white border. The card itself is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I had cut down the printed panel down to be 5 by 3 3/4 inches. And then I am going to finish it off with a few little white enamel dots, just a couple of them here and there to break up that purple background and that gorgeous big purple and blue flower. So that is my card for today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching this, make sure you give me a thumbs up and share the video. I really, really appreciate all of that, and I appreciate all of the beautiful support that I get down in the comment section. I love reading your comments, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!